You ever have a moment where you look up at the sky to ask yourself the most overtly philosophical question? Why? Why do I exist? Is there even such a thing as a meaning to life? I don't think I'm alone in asking myself this question, but I do think I'm one of the few who had a eureka moment, scribbled it down, woke up the next day to look at what I wrote down, and was shocked to find that what I wrote down still made sense. I think, and bear with me because this is gonna sound very weird, humans are God. A more accurate description would be, humans want to become like God, but kind of are already a little bit. Not in some religious or spiritual way, like God is everywhere or we are all part of God. No, I mean this in the most literal, perhaps pseudo-scientific term possible. The highest purpose of every conscious, sentient species is to become like God, alter everything until all it sees is by its own hand. And unless there's aliens out there who match or exceed our level of intelligence, no other animal is capable of altering the world like humans do. We are therefore the closest thing to the creator, if you will. Okay, perhaps not the creator, but more so the alterator. The religious interpretation of God is it's some entity up in the sky that created everything from scratch, the entire galaxy created by his divine will. That would mean that everything has a plan to it. Everything in our world has a purpose. The scientific explanation is that all of the universe was created from one point that contained all the matter which exploded and that created the universe. Both explanations have one major similarity. Both say, from nothing came everything. If we go by this scientific explanation of the birth of the universe, arguably nothing has purpose. Everything is at random. Nothing exists for a reason. We are nothing more than stardust that for some reason, over millennia's worth of evolution, created a consciousness. There's no rhyme or reason for our existence. And you could argue that gaining a consciousness was a byproduct of the way Homo erectus evolved into Homo sapien, but there's no logical, scientific explanation that concludes why consciousness exists. But yet, we are here, experiencing who we are, burdened with, if you are like me, a philosophical question. I think, therefore I am. But for what purpose? See, I'm not religious or spiritual for that matter, but I do believe there must be some logical reason for our existence. Not necessarily the existence of humans, but more so the existence of an animal/alien life form coming to understand itself and its surroundings. A part of the universe understanding itself, if you will. And not by some divine will of the universe, because the universe doesn't think. More so as a reality, like how gravity holds us to the earth and how the earth rotates around the sun. Universal realities that exist simply because they do. And by those same universal truths, if a species is smart enough and lives long enough, it will eventually start shaping the world around itself until it has complete control of everything. We are already kind of doing it. Everything you see, unless you look up into the sky, was put there or altered by humans. Most of the fruits and vegetables in our supermarkets are mutations through millennia of cultivation. Most of the animals around today have either adapted to us or are made by us through selective breeding. Most of the dry inhabitable land is occupied by man-made infrastructure. Most of our day is filled looking at man-made devices displaying unimportant information to keep us occupied. We humans are no longer part of the food chain. We have literally outsmarted evolution and have now taken evolution into our own hand. And you may say, well, yeah, we do, but that doesn't make you God. That just makes you smart apes. And this is why this might be a more accurate description. Humans want to become like God, but kind of are already a little bit. Because do you really think this is the final stage for human ingenuity? It could be if we kill ourselves, but think about it. Just like living in the year 2023 is completely different from living in 1923, living in the year 2123 is going to be entirely different from living in 2023. Not to mention what will go on in 3023. I reckon we're about 25 years away from living 25% of our lives in a virtual world. We're about 50 years away from living in some cyberpunk world where we're all artificially enhancing ourselves. We are about 100 years away from widely accepted commercial space travel. Which leads us to going to planets on neighboring galaxies, changing the atmospheres there to support life. I could go on. I mean, there's really no telling what life would look like 5,000 years from now. And I get the counter argument that God is only really God if it's omnipotent. God is the creator, not the alterator. We will never be able to alter, the laws of physics. We will never be able to control the flow of time. We are nothing but intelligent, naked apes who have shaped the world to their liking. True. Human beings will never be omnipotent. We will never be able to do certain things simply because they are impossible. Take something like time travel. We assume that time is a constant, but that's not entirely true. If you could somehow get close to a black hole, time would slow down. And so, if you, let's say, take two people, one lives in close proximity to a black hole and the other one doesn't, the person near that black hole will live 1 day where the other one will live 12 and is therefore 11 days older. Now, I'm really not suggesting that everything is possible. It's just to say the jury's still out on how impossible things really are. We live under this assumption that because things are incomprehensible and infallible today, they will also be, 5,000 years from now. But do you honestly think that if you tell someone in the year 1500 what we have today, they'll believe you? No. You'd be considered a crazy person. Don't listen to him. He says that in 500 years we'll all go to work in these little magic houses on wheels while we sit behind moving frames that make pictures powered by ones and zeros, which are somehow connected with each other and hold all the data in the world in the cloud. Those people would never believe you. Then again, most people 100 years ago won't believe you. Doesn't mean it isn't exactly how it is. But those humans 500 years ago were living under the impression that what they were capable of was basically what humanity would ever be capable of. But they were wrong. Just as wrong as believing things to be impossible in the future because they're impossible now. Humans will never be omnipotent. But I think we'll get a lot closer than we now think is possible. The point I'm trying to make is that humanity in potential is capable of truly amazing things. So much so that I think we owe it to ourselves, our future generations, and all other living things on this planet to live up to that. To sum up humanity in 2 words, wasted potential. If we could somehow start working together as a species, stop waging wars on each other, stop letting ourselves be divided by arbitrary reasons, learn to be more empathetic to the world around us, the sky's the limit on what humans could achieve. So then the $1 million question becomes, what is ruining this great potential and how do we get rid of it? And the answer, unfortunately, is human nature itself. We have not evolved out of animals into humans slowly creeping towards becoming this godlike creator. We are 3 things at once. Animal, the body, human, the soul, and God, the creator, all at the same time. And this is the core of our problem. This is why we suck so much. Because more and more we are becoming the creator, but we are still driven by our animalistic compulsions. God should be this all-knowing, omnipotent, divine being that has a bird's-eye view of everything. But instead, it's a monkey with those eye flaps that horses wear. We are too dumb to be this smart. We are too powerful to be this emotional.
If we are to be God, we have to learn to no longer be selfish. We have to learn to live with each other and nature in kindness and harmony. Perhaps the idea of thinking ourselves to be God is to indicate that we have a unified goal to achieve, all united in this idea that we are building the perfect world for everyone. Not I am building the perfect world for myself. No, I am building the perfect world for everyone, and then I get to live in it.
I'm, however, not saying that humans are necessarily unkind. A human isn't more aggressive than a lion, but a lion isn't holding billions of animals captive to consume. We're not as sadistic as a killer whale, but a killer whale doesn't have access to nuclear weapons.
We've taken a lot of things like aggression that used to help us survive in nature and brought them with us into modern human life, even though we've ascended traditional evolution.
We're still carrying a lot of now unnecessary destructive behavior with us. Behavior that helped us survive back then, but is only a burden now. I mean, who's left to fight? Ourselves? Perhaps someday some alien species who wants to take over the Earth. But for real, who are we still fighting? We won. Human beings are the most dominating species on the planet by a mile. If we are to continue on this path of becoming God, we have to learn to suppress our bad subconscious animalistic behavior. We will never not be animals, but we can't act like them anymore. If we do, we'll eventually destroy ourselves. Let's compare ourselves to another animal, like a cat. A cat is programmed to hunt smaller animals, and even though it doesn't have to because we feed it, it does so because it's woven in its DNA. The noise it makes when it sees a bird is not, "That's my friend outside, I want to play with him." That sound means, if there wasn't a window between us, I'd rip your spine out. That's how his ancestors survived. Just like how it's woven in our DNA to be greedy, power-hungry, selfish, and fearful of others.
It is ironically what made us so successful up until recently is also what might kill us going forward.
A cat can at most kill a couple of birds and some rodents. We have the capability to kill everything on this planet. So what we need to do is understand what animalistic compulsions drive us, and then stop doing that. And I know this sounds like the beginning of some spiritual journey where we all take ayahuasca to pop out of the cocoon that is monkey, so we can search for our godly essence that will connect us to the hive mind that is humanity.
And yes, that is what I'm saying, kind of. But I promise it's not as woolly as it sounds. It's not an exact science either. We are talking about the future and religious interpretations, so it might sound a little hippy-dippy here and there. But most of what I'm trying to say really is based on logic. Why do we do bad?
Because we still function on very old stuff. Humans need a software update.
We need to shake certain instinctual behaviors. Behaviors that used to help us forward now only hold us back.
It used to be that the most aggressive among us would have the biggest chance of survival, because they'd be best at hunting animals and protecting itself from bigger animals and competing tribes. Today, the most aggressive among us are either in prison for murder or fighting wars. Greed is a survival mechanism to have enough food in times of scarcity, meaning the most greedy among our ancestors would survive the winters. Today, the most greedy among us are arguing if water is a public right and raising the price of insulin. So maybe it is time to look at ourselves through a bird's eye view and really ask ourselves, what are we doing? Is this really what we are capable of? Instead of living for ourselves and destroying the earth, why not
heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race?
If we can somehow manage to work together to make the world as kind and beautiful and harmonious as possible, there's really nothing holding us back from achieving this except human nature itself. If we can fix this, us becoming God is a blessing. Otherwise, it's a curse on us and everything around us.
Anywho, back to the grandiose statement in the title, that I claim to know the meaning of life. And now for the anticlimax. There isn't one. Life doesn't have a meaning.
Us being God means the meaning has to come from us. I'm going to sound like some weird Taoist monk saying this.
We must give life purpose, so in turn it can give purpose to us.
But since it's therefore completely open to interpretation, we can choose what the meaning of life should be. And I will very nobly elect myself to make that call for all 8 billion people on this planet. The meaning of life is... Drumroll, please.
Be kind.
I'll elaborate on that a little. Again, I don't think there's a divine, scientific, objective answer to the question, what is the meaning of life? So it in itself becomes completely subjective. Like, there's no best color, but if you ask 100 people what color they like the most, 50 will say blue, 25 will say red, 25 will say green. So subjectively, blue is the best color. In that same nature, I am arguing as my opinion that being kind, always choosing the kindest solution to every problem, is subjectively the best answer, because it's most beneficial to most living organisms. The thing that makes us humans so dominant as a species is our ability to work together. And the more kind we are, the less we'll be divided, the more we can learn from each other, and the smarter we'll get. And intelligence plus kindness is the meaning of life. To summarize, I wrote a little song.
Hello. So many people walk around with this question. It's a philosophical dilemma we simply can't answer. It's as old as consciousness, as old as time. Soon as we could think, it's been on our mind. And then some prick comes along with his giant ego, that's me, claims it to be simple and says that he knows. I know the meaning of life, know the meaning of life. I know the meaning of life, it's just being kind. You might say it's a little oversimplistic, not based on facts, not very logistic, but I promise it encompasses everything. Just listen to this formula I'm about to sing. You see, the sum of intelligence plus empathy will equal to a world so heavenly. And that's the meaning of life. That's the meaning of life. That's the meaning of life. It's just being kind. You might say it's stupid, you might say it's dumb. Call me a poser and tell me I'm wrong, cause really life is without reason or rhyme. See, I do not have an argument to that at this time. But unless anyone comes with a better solution, I think this might just be, well, the best of conclusions to the meaning of life. And it's being empathetic, pragmatic, a little silly and sympathetic, to make the world a better place for all by just being kind.